And so there is absolutely no utility in feeling guilty about buying at a immense discount. And really, like, I'm speaking to myself here as well as trying to speak to all of you. But if you have an ounce of that belief that buying at a discount is somehow prohibiting your ability to perform business in an ethical manner, it is going to prevent you from maximizing your LTV to CAC ratio. Welcome to the Ryan Rice Show, where we talk about what we learned yesterday that we can apply today so that we can be better tomorrow. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Over the past few years, I've learned what the most important numbers are in a direct seller real estate business, and I'm going to share them with you, as well as some things that I've learned about how to maximize those numbers so that you can strengthen your business, make more money, and serve your customers better. Who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I run a real estate investment business where I buy and I wholesale real estate. I'm in my fourth year of doing so full time. And I share a lot of this so that you can get some of the lessons without the scars that I've gotten. The most important number that you need to know is the ratio of how much money you make per client, which in most cases in this business is just one deal. In the history of all the deals that I've done, I have not served one client more than one time. So, more simply put, uh, essentially how much you can make net per deal, divided by how much money that you're spending to get a customer, or more simply put, your cost per closed contract. And we'll talk about how to ensure you're calculating them correctly. In general business terms, this is known as your LTV to CAC, or your lifetime value per customer to your cost to acquire a customer. In our direct seller real estate business, our lifetime value is essentially just our average profit per deal because we're helping most of our clients only one time. And our cost to acquire a customer, the definition of acquiring a customer is a closed deal. And so we just have to calculate what that cost is. So, first, how do you calculate the cost to acquire a customer? And again, in our business, a customer is defined as a closed deal. So, you need to know how much it's costing you to close a deal, otherwise known, like we discussed, as your cost per closed contract. And the way that you calculate this is you take your total ad spend and you have to include your agency fees, and you divide it by how many deals that you've closed. Very, very simple. Now, I track both my cost per contract and my cost per contract closed. That way I can see what my fallout rate is. And if there's something that I need to improve there, then I can work on that. And so your fallout rate is simply, if you are getting deals in contract and you are not closing all of them, then you're having some of those contracts fall out. And in my experience, you should have a very little fallout rate. There is going to be some fallout for things that you cannot control, but the fallout rate is very little if you are doing what you should in your business. But at minimum, you want to keep a Google Sheet. I use a Google Sheet to track this. I also have some metrics in my CRM that track this, but I keep a Google Sheet because it tracks it exactly how I want to. And if you can just keep one that shows how much you're spending each month on which marketing channel, how much you're spending total, and how many contracts that you've closed, then you can be sure that you're tracking this data. Next, to calculate what, again, some would call our lifetime value per client in our business, again, is just most commonly known as our net profit or gross profit per deal. You take the net of everything that you've made on a flip or a wholesale and you divide it by how many deals that you've closed. And it's really important that you understand what the net is, right? So if you're wholesaling, for example, and your wholesale fee is $15,000 and you're paying a transaction coordinator $400 as well as another $300 for an investor inspection, well, you have to take 15,000 minus 700, and so your wholesale fee in that transaction is going to be 14,300, and that's the number that you're using to calculate what your, LTV, or what your average profit per deal is. In that scenario, it would not be 15,000, it's 14,300 because you have a cost to deliver that service. And in that case, that cost is transaction coordination as well as getting that property inspected. So, and also another thing to consider if you're a wholesaler who's just getting started and you're driving to the house, or maybe you're putting your own lockbox on the property and you're not retrieving that lockbox once it's done, then your net is your gross minus, the mileage that you've driven to the house, the cost of that lockbox, etc. So be sure that you're calculating all of those costs when it comes to your gross versus net, and when it comes to calculating your LTV or your lifetime value or your average profit per deal, you want to make sure that you're factoring in the cost of delivery. In a flip, it's essentially the same as calculating your rehab in a flip, right? Your profit in a flip is everything that you make after the cost to deliver on the service of a flip, which is all of your money costs, all of your rehab costs, all of your holding costs, etc. If you have a cost to deliver your wholesale, and that includes a lockbox, a transaction coordinator fee, etc., then you want to be sure that you're calculating your net accordingly. So keeping good books is really, really important in this business. And so the number one thing, or the number one things that we can do to strengthen our business, is to maximize our net profit per deal and to decrease our cost to acquire a deal to as low as humanly possible. And theoretically, the higher that we can get this ratio, the more value that we're providing to the marketplace, the more our business is going to grow. Now, you can make how much you net per deal, or you can maximize how much net that you make per deal in two different ways. You can buy as deep as possible, or you can sell as high as possible. And we're going to talk about buying as deep as possible first. So, the very first thing I want to address when we talk about buying as deep as possible is your belief about the ethics of buying as deep as possible. Because this, in my experience, it can be a gray area. And frankly, there are many people who are trying to buy as deep as possible without or in the absence of good ethics. But you can buy as deep as possible with good ethics, and I want to talk about that for a second. The way the best businesses have thrived for the longest period of time is they provide an immense amount of value to their consumers. And so in this case, our consumer is the seller. And as long as we frame the transaction around how we can provide the most value to our seller, then I believe you can consistently buy at a discount and you can do so ethically. And here's what I mean. First and foremost, if you're a wholesaler and you're locking deals up that either you don't know how to close on yourself, or you have no intent of closing yourself and you're unsure if someone else can or will close, or you're doing both of those things at the same time and your seller thinks that you are personally closing on it, then you're not working in the best interest of your seller. And there may be some compromised ethics. This is why I'm a huge advocate of flipping your first deal or maybe even your first few deals so that you know exactly what it takes to close on the deal yourself. Because then when you wholesale, you can do so with confidence, and you can always have a contingency plan that if you don't find a buyer, you can close on it yourself. And I think this is important to go through because I personally struggled with the belief that the bigger the discount I have on a house, the am I ripping someone off? Am I running my business in an ethical way? And I had this irrational fear around that. However, after losing hundreds of thousands of dollars buying real estate, that fear has dissipated a bit. And I still have to work on it sometimes, but it is 1,000% possible to completely serve our client's need, yet still buy real estate at a large discount. And the reason is due to the inherent risk that comes with buying real estate. There is always something that can happen. The market can shift, the sewer line can bust, the house can catch on fire, it can get broken into, the HVAC can get stolen, a plumbing line can break, your septic system can fail, etc. By the way, every single one of those things has happened to me, and they suck when they happen, right? But that is the risk of buying real estate. And so if you buy wrong, real estate can literally bankrupt you. And I've seen it happen to many people, unfortunately. And so there is absolutely no utility in feeling guilty about buying at a immense discount. And really, like, I'm speaking to myself here as well as trying to speak to all of you. But if you have an ounce of that belief that buying at a discount is somehow prohibiting your ability to perform business in an ethical manner, it is going to prevent you from maximizing your LTV to CAC ratio, or your lifetime value to the cost of customer to the cost of acquiring customer. It's going to impact your ability to maximize that ratio, which only hurts your ability to serve customers in the long run, because the more profit your business makes, the more you can use and fuel that profit to help serve your customers and your clients better. Now, the second part of getting over this belief is realizing that as wholesalers and flippers, we have the ability to solve client problems that cannot be solved in the same fashion a realtor can traditionally solve them. And that's not a matter of opinion, it's simply a matter of fact as to how these transactions work, right? And so, to simplify this down to the easiest way to understand, a wholesaler or a flipper can give a seller a significantly higher feeling of certainty than a realtor can. And some sellers don't have the resources or the desire or both, maybe, to put in to their house in order to put it on the market and try to maximize what they're going to put in their pocket. And even if a realtor listed the home in its current condition with literally zero work done on the homeowner's part, there's still a lack of certainty because the realtor's not buying the home. There's no guaranteed, I will pay this price for your house, right? So the dynamic of the difference of the value that a realtor and a wholesaler or a flipper can provide to a seller will never change, because a realtor cannot provide a guarantee of what the purchase price is going to be. And that is a psychological barrier, or that is going to be a barrier that will be tough for a realtor to break. Now, a good realtor would argue that based on where homes have sold, they could be, quote, virtually certain the home would sell at that price. And in many cases, good realtors are correct. Real quick, as you guys know, I just recently started this podcast. If you could give it a rating with a quick tap of the thumb, that would mean the world to me. And even more importantly, it could help spread the word to a broader audience, which in turn could help change a life. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the show. But the actual purchase agreement is a very different level of certainty. And that is the value that wholesalers and flippers can bring that type of client. And this is why it's so important to know how to close on a deal when you put it in contract, because the whole value proposition of a wholesaler, of a flipper, is the certainty and the perceived work that the seller would have to put in order to sell their house. And if you're locking deals up and you don't know how to close, or you don't know if it will close, and you're not disclosing that to your seller, then you're essentially lying to them, which of course is the opposite of adding value. And so I really wanted to address this guilt or potential guilt of buying real estate at a discount, because one, I do occasionally see others struggle with it, and I have personally struggled with it. And we have to be okay, and maybe not just okay, but we have to have conviction that us buying real estate at a discount is actually truly serving our prospective clients, because we are adding value to the consumer that they cannot get through selling their house in a more traditional fashion. And this means that if we try to serve clients who don't have problems that realtors can't solve, meaning that we're trying to help prospective sellers whose problems realtors can solve, then our lifetime value to the cost of acquiring a customer ratio is going to be minimized, because our perception of value will be low, and therefore we're not going to be able to buy the real estate at a discount. Why would a homeowner give up equity and when they wouldn't need to give up that equity if they listed the house? Now, this is where slimy wholesaler enters, right? If you're a slimy wholesaler and you're taking advantage of grandma who doesn't know anything, then that is not in the seller's best interest. But you can simply choose not to be that type of wholesaler. And this is why it's important to focus your attention on sellers who need solutions that a traditional realtor has difficulty solving. Lastly, in the buy low category comes your skill set of influencing the seller. And to influence him or her, you're going to be most successful at this by actually acting in their best interest. Meaning you deeply work to understand what their needs, what their desires, what their concerns are, and you do everything in your power to get them those things, to get them to their dream outcome in a fashion that is conducive for how they want to get there. The skill of sales is vitally important. And the better you hone that skill in this business, the deeper you're going to be able to buy. So let's come out of the buy as deep as possible topic and transition into sell as high as possible. And if you're wholesaling, selling as high as possible is your disposition department, or better put, the person in charge of finding a buyer, which in many cases is you. If you're flipping a house, selling as high as possible means adding as much value to the home for the smallest costs, and then obviously in most cases listing it on the market and finding a retail buyer. But let's first focus on the disposition side of your wholesale business. To maximize what someone will pay, you have to go talk to as many buyers as humanly possible. And the buyers who will traditionally pay the most are those who buy in their own cash. They have good and sometimes internal construction teams, and they may even buy materials in bulk because they do this so often. And this facet of your business is important because it takes a significant amount of work. One thing I started doing that has really, really helped is I pull who all of the cash buyers are in the local area, especially if it's a neighborhood. So if I'm buying a house in a specific neighborhood, I'll go pull all of the buyers that have bought cash in that neighborhood within the past 6 to 12 months, and I will reach out to all of them. I will also reach out to all of the agents who have represented those cash buyers if I cannot get the cash buyer directly. And I try my best to ensure I have multiple offers on a deal before I sell it. And this forces me to go find out what the market will pay as opposed to take the easy route of accepting the first offer that, quote, feels good. And as a result, my average assignment fee has increased more than 40% year over year. And so if you want to maximize your net per deal while wholesaling, you have to get really good at disposition, and you have to put a lot of attention and a lot of effort into that part of your business. And where I fell into the trap when I first started wholesaling is sometimes it's just relieving to have a buyer and then we can move on to the next deal or focus our attention elsewhere. And what I found is putting in the extra time, the extra effort into reaching out to as many buyers as possible can help maximize what that wholesale fee can be. So, selling high flipping, moving into flipping now, is all about adding both real and perceived value to the home and then listing it on the market. And I did an entire podcast on how to create significant interest, how to create a whole bunch of offers on your flip. And I encourage everyone to listen to that one. But with flipping, what someone will pay is going to come down to the curb appeal of the home, the quality of your construction, how does it match current trends, the kitchen, the bathrooms, those are going to be your biggest facets. And so you maximize what you can do with all of those pieces of your renovation while minimizing how much that renovation is costing. But you have to, there's nothing more important than having good quality construction. Regardless of what type of materials that you're putting in there, the construction just needs to be high quality and clean. And so that covers both buying low and selling high as a means to increase your lifetime value of your customers. And we covered a lot there. We covered the beliefs that you have to ensure that you can buy low without guilt, as well as some of the tactics on how you can buy low and how you can sell high. The other side of that equation is getting your cost per contract as low as humanly possible. And one of the things I've done to improve this in my business are is really honing your transaction coordinator role to minimize your contract fallout rate to as close to zero as possible. Because think about it, if you're not losing contracts, then that means your cost per contract is going to be lower because you're having more deals actually close. And in reality, this part of your business isn't necessarily difficult, but it does take a lot of work and you have to have a really good process. You have to always stay in communication with the customer. It helps to really minimize the communication latency to as little as zero as possible. And again, I did also an entire podcast episode on this role, and there was some good stuff there that would, if you gave it a listen, I think it helped that side of your business. The other big focus of your business to help minimize your cost to acquire a customer is going to be on your marketing. And to dial this in, you really need to track a ton of stuff as it relates to your marketing. Something I track, or the things that I track, are your cost per lead, how many appointments you're setting, how many of those appointments are you closing, how many of those deals that you get in contract actually get through title and get to the closing process. And then with all of that information, you can track your cost per closed deal. And in direct to seller real estate, agencies are very common in this industry. And to define agency, agency is a third party who will run your marketing for you, right? So it's common for people to have a cold calling business and you hire them and they facilitate cold calling. It's common for, if you run TV commercials, for someone to handle that side and do the media buying with your TV stations, etc. Agencies are very common because those skill sets are very unique. And in the beginning, it would cost a lot of money to learn those skill sets and go do all of the different marketing that's required. But tracking this will also help track your cumulative fees that you're paying, which can give insight into whether or not it makes sense for you to try to bring some of this marketing in house, right? So it's important that you track what your agency fees are and you include them in your cost per close contract, because then you can start to make decisions like, wow, I spent, 15 to 20 grand just this month on only agency fees or on only data fees. Does it make sense now for me to transition and maybe I can pay someone, and cumulative, I could pay someone 70% of what it's costing me to hire all of these agencies to do marketing. But it's likely you're not going to get there until you grow your business to a pretty big size. Referrals can be another way to reduce your cost to acquire a customer. And to be transparent, I have not figured that side of the business out. I'm working on a few things there, and I'll report to you guys what I find when I do work on that. But a good baseline or a good target for a cost per contract closed in this business is anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500 bucks. And that is what I'm hearing from people that are doing, 6 million plus a year in this direct to seller real estate business. And so if you can work towards a 2,500 to a 3,500 cost per closed contract, it's likely that you're going to be able to run, a 4, 5, 6 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio, which means your business is going to be able to grow faster. And getting that low of a cost per contract is going to come down to getting leads in the door through your marketing channel, having an absolutely dialed sales process to reach all of those leads and convert as many of them as possible. Obviously, the more that you convert, the lower your CAC. And this could look like ensuring that you always answer the phone, getting back to your leads immediately, constantly doing sales training, having a dialed follow-up process, etc. But ensuring that you're tracking all of these numbers can help give you insight into where the holes in your direct to seller real estate business are so that you can focus your attention there. So we covered a lot of stuff here, but it's important that if you're running a direct to seller real estate business, that you obsess over knowing these numbers, because there is no number more important than your LTV to CAC ratio. And if you're constantly tracking it, then you can make sure it is always moving in the right direction. And as a general rule, you need at least a minimum of a 3 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio to be able to run an effective business, because you're going to have other general expenses that you're paying to run a business. And if that ratio is not 3 to 1, you're going to struggle to make money. It's going to be tough to make a profit. So the higher that you are, the better you're going to be able to serve your customers in the long run. And when I say the higher you are, the higher that LTV to CAC ratio is. So super tactical here, but in full disclosure, this is the business of making money in direct to seller real estate. So it is a little bit more tactical. Maybe it's a little bit more boring, but you have to know this side of your business if you're going to run it well, if you're going to make money in your real estate business, and if you want to truly serve your clients in the long run. So appreciate you guys listening. If you think this would be helpful to anyone out there who's running a real estate business, then I would really appreciate if you share it. That's how this podcast grows. And I really appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next one.